Hello and welcome to this webinar for subscribers to ESS Biztools and ESS BizGrants. Today we're going to talk about what I consider to be a very important subject as far as risk management is concerned for your clients, and that is the Personal Property Securities Register. So welcome, and I hope that I'll be able to show you some of the key areas of the product package that ESS Biztools has produced to assist you to guide your clients through this process. The Personal Property Securities Register Procedure Control Form that we have prepared will assist you to be able to implement a strategy for your clients to take them through this process. The procedure control form is on your screen now, and we will just go through various aspects of it. Section A is the quotation and proposal, and this gives you a indication of some of the material that I suggest the people who are going to be working on PPSR due diligence reviews for your clients read, so that they are familiar with all aspects. We've also included a proposal template and a quotation template that you can use if you wish. Section B has some articles to assist the client to have a better understanding of the tremendous risks that are involved for businesses who do not elect to register customers or people that they have assets stored with or leased to on the Personal Property Securities Register. And Section D is the work checklist. Now, this is the real motor of our system because BAS 1645 is the key form, and I'm going to show you the actual form shortly. But if you're going to undertake a PPSR due diligence review, my recommendation is that you use BAS 1645 to guide you through the process. And the best way to do it is to say to the client, we're going to undertake a full audit review of where all your assets were last night. And let's just see what the potential risk that your client was taking by not registering on the PPSR. You can see from the screen there's a significant range of assets that are mentioned: stock, livestock, goods, artist works, plant and equipment, construction equipment, motor vehicles, boats, watercraft, aircraft, other physical assets, debtors, the potential for unfair preferential payment claims, which we'll talk about in a moment, but things like financing, licensing and trademarks and intellectual property that may have been hired out or leased to someone, loans, including loans to associated entities. There's been a famous case that the company lost over $2.3 million by not having, in effect, registered on the PPSR loans made to another company within the group. Assets held on trust by other people. I often think about superannuation fund trustees who have stored works of art and other valuable investment articles on someone else's property. Are they following through and registering those assets on the Personal Property Securities Register? So that's the main thrust of BAS 1645, which we'll have a look at in more detail shortly. Item 14 has a commentary on the key documents that relate to the PPSR, the retention of title agreements and the terms of trade agreement. Please check that your clients are using agreements that have been prepared by commercial solicitors from around January 2012. Yes, that's when PPSR started, 2012. And it's worth thinking about that. Over 7.5 years, over $400 million has been lost by Australian small, medium, and large, very large businesses. The largest loss that I can find out is about $70 million. And it was lost by a subsidiary of one of the largest companies in the world, in the top 100 in the USA. How can that happen? It's simple. Someone made a decision that they didn't need to register a particular arrangement on the PPSR, and unfortunately, a liquidator was appointed. So it's worth repeating that where these problems emerge for businesses like your clients is if their customer or someone that they've stored property with or entered into other commercial arrangements has a liquidator or a trustee in bankruptcy or a receiver appointed. It takes that event to occur before there's any problems involving not having registered on the Personal Property Securities Register. But there's far more of those events, unfortunate events, occur than what you might think do occur. So that's the process of the Personal Property Securities Register procedure control form. It takes you through, it guides you through the process. Some of the questions will not be applicable, but they're all there to prompt you to be asking questions of your client, because we envisage that you are undertaking a due diligence review and you want to determine whether any of these items are causing concerns to your client. Let's move on. The next one is the BAS 1645, the Personal Property Securities Register Identification of Personal Property. So let's bring that up and you can have a look at it. And see how it can be utilized within your firm. So you would badge this as with the name of the client or your firm name above those double lines, and then have the name of the client. You've got the index, which is covering a range of activities. And then we'll move into it. So please envisage that your client has commissioned you to conduct a Personal Property Securities Register review. Our recommendation is you would do it today on where everything was situated last night. So it's worth bearing in mind the definition of personal property. It's fairly simple for some legislation that's caused a lot of heartache for Australian businesses. Small, medium, and large size. Personal property is defined as all forms of property other than real estate. Now, this covers a vast range of business property, which I've just shown you. But let's work in a bit more detail now so you can see what we're talking about. In stock, we've dissected stock into some components, really to alert you to be asking those questions to your client. Did you have consignment stock? Did you have a demonstration stock? And we've made provision for you to add some other categories if your client's got some peculiar definitions or namings of stock. And then we're asking, where was it located last night? If it was on the client's own premises that they own, there's virtually no problem. But if it's in leased premises or someone else's property or it's on consignment, they are the three risk areas. So you need to be able to identify where the stock was. And then we have some key questions relative to the terms of trade agreement and the retention of title agreement. Have they got one? Check it, read it, see who prepared it. Were they a commercial solicitor? And when did they prepare it? Because if it was prior to January 2012, I think there's a fair chance it might not reflect the current legal position. So there's some other questions there. We've then created a separate section for livestock and crop. Why? Crops have got some special treatment under this legislation, and livestock because there's been some infamous legal cases in New Zealand featuring thoroughbred horses. So we decided to make it separate. And also because in Australia, there's always livestock on adjustment because there's always a drought somewhere in Australia and cattle are being moved around and graziers need protection. And the crop review is a separate section and there's notes in the material on that. We then move into goods, and goods have got a number of dissections also. Goods left in someone else's possession. Goods sold on your behalf by someone else. Goods attached to other goods. Mixed goods, grain supplied to a grain silo that are mixed with other farmers' grain. How do you repossess your client's grain? Crops used for growing crops. There's special provision for those. Seeds, fertilizers, pest control, and supplies and feed for livestock. If your client's the supplier of those, they can gain a special registration on the PPSR for them. We then look at D, artist works, painting, sculptures, designs. I put this in separately because there had been a major issue in Auckland, New Zealand, shortly after their legislation was introduced. And that involved a store that was holding on consignment all this type of stock, and a liquidator had been appointed. I understand there was near riot as people turned up trying to repossess their goods, and they were met by security guards who told them they were not allowed inside the store. New Zealand has had this legislation for about 5 years longer than Australia, and in lots of ways we have followed their legislation, not completely, but in lots of ways. And the courts have taken into account New Zealand court decisions when the Australian courts have been asked to make some judgments. Plant and equipment, things like signs or any other sort of product rented to customers, but work scaffolding equipment, tradesmen's plant and equipment, cranes. There has been some changes since the 20th of May 2017 because that was when the government changed the legislation relative to leases, and that's why we got some separate sections relating to pre-20 May 2017 and post-20 May 2017. So this is the key form for you to use. Motor vehicles. Where were they? Where are they? Have they got leases for more than 2 years? If so, they should be registering them if they want protection. And so it goes on. So hopefully that will give you an indication of what's in the system in that regard. And pardon me, my recommendation is that you should be looking into it. The next item I want to talk to you about is to show you an example of BAS 1611, which is the Personal Property Securities Register checklist for manufacturing businesses. We have about 19 other checklists for various types of businesses, wholesale, retail, farmers. This one is for the manufacturing business, just to give you something to work through with your client. So there's some questions there that will help you decide whether this client needs to tighten up on what they're doing. Make sure that a system is being followed. Make sure that there's an understanding of the terminology that's got to be used in the registration process. The next one I want to show you is 1650, the policy on retention of title. If you have any questions at any time about personal property securities register processing, due diligence review, don't hesitate to contact us and we'll give you our thoughts on how it should be treated. So we got this form now. Now, the original problem that most businesses have is determining whether the potential risk justifies registering on the register. The cost for 7 years is $6.50. So it's really not a cost issue, but there is a time taken to prepare these registrations. And the client customer has to have signed the terms of trade agreement and the retention of title agreements as part of the sale process if your client is going to register this customer on the PPSR. I think it's fairly important to try to determine at what potential loss the client will register. So this form, hopefully contained within 1650, will assist you to have a conversation with your client to determine what the potential exposure could be from a particular customer. And we have another form within the system which will encourage your client to think about what the exposure amount might be. Now, I've had all sorts of various amounts told to me by accountants and some business people as to what their level of pain would be, ranging from $500 to about $80,000. Somewhere in between is probably the right figure for your clients. The key question to the client is, what are they prepared to shrug and, in effect, write off if the client cannot pay them or they lose an asset to a liquidator? Now, if that's $500, they're basically going to be registering virtually every customer, I would have thought. So this form requires an estimate as to what the monthly sales might be, what are the negotiated terms, what could be your maximum exposure. And in most cases, I'd be saying it's probably going to be about 90 days sale before someone really realizes there's a problem with this customer. But who is the customer? And we've got some indications there of federal government. Well, I hope you haven't got to register the federal government or any of their departments. And the same comment applies for state and territory governments, I hope. And local government, well, in most parts of Australia, I like to think that local government are going to be safe also. Then we get into large public companies, and that starts bringing in some real judgment. Obviously, there are some very valuable listed public companies, which I don't think you necessarily should be encouraging clients to register. But every year, unfortunately, there are failures on companies listed on the stock exchange, so clients need to be careful who they're dealing with. Small public companies, I think it's important that they're probably registered. They're mainly in the unlisted public company category. I know there are some very big and strong unlisted public companies, and again, it's going to be a judgment. And then we get down to proprietary limited companies and other businesses. The client needs to make a decision as to which ones they are potentially vulnerable to if they cannot pay, and then establish a system so that every customer, as a customer comes on board, they're analysed to determine what the potential risk could be. And the company should have a policy. It might be if our risk is over $10,000, we are going to insure. There's thousands of business transactions being registered on the PPSR, so your client won't be an odd person out if they start registering on the PPSR. In fact, it will be very sound risk management for their business. Okay, let's have a look at the next one I want to show you in this review. And this is going to relate to liquidators and preferential payment claims. This is a very important area. Now, many of you are probably acting for trades businesses. And I think trades businesses are one of the areas that are most vulnerable to claims of preferential payment claims, because they're working for a builder or a bigger contractor. And unfortunately, a large number of builders around Australia every year seem to get into some difficulties. And perhaps your client should have registered them on the PPSR. Now, it's probably not as easy as that, because the builder needs to have signed the terms of trade agreement and the retention of title agreement. But that's up to your client to understand the risk if he's not prepared to go and ask that builder to sign those agreements, or the builder refuses to sign them for some reason. Perhaps your client should not then be subcontracting to that particular builder or whoever the principal is. So we've got some commentary in the system that you can share with your clients on the risks that relate to some business people who are obviously receiving progress payments, that they may have received a preferential payment that's been alleged by a liquidator. Now, it is supposed to be and has to be a preferential payment. There has been some publicity and some allegations made by some liquidators that some other liquidators are not as careful with their calculations as what they probably should be. What the allegations are, that some liquidators issue claims against anyone who got paid anything in the 6 months prior to their appointment. I don't think that's what preferential payments means. The liquidator is supposed to do a calculation that would convince a court that, in fact, a particular business got paid percentage-wise a lot more money than what the average creditor got paid during that period. And it is that extra payment that is the preferential payment. Your client can protect themselves from preferential payment demands from liquidators if they have registered that customer, whether it's a builder or someone else, on the PPSR. Please make your clients aware of that so that they can understand how that works in the overall process. So that's a review of the Personal Property Securities Register. It's within your system that you have within ESS Biztools. My recommendation is that you would be talking to your business clients, people who have these types of assets that we've discussed in this review today, and suggest to them that you conduct at least an annual review of their system. Might take 3 or 4 hours to review, might be done quicker. In some cases, you may want to review what your clients have been doing even more regularly than annually. And especially if there's been key staff movement. Someone's been undertaking this job for 3 years and they leave or they move to another job. I think it'd be a good idea to have an awareness that that's happened so that you can say to your client, you should be going in now to do an update review with the new person that's handling this job. Some people have lost a lot of money through ignorance of this legislation. I wouldn't like to have a client walk into my office tomorrow morning and start telling me that they've just lost $250,000 asset because it was not registered on the PPSR. There have been various amounts of money lost. 70 million's the largest one that I've been able to find, but there's been plenty in the $2 to $5 million category. Sums of money that I think would potentially wreck small and medium-sized enterprise businesses. So, if you need any further assistance, please contact us, and we will see what we can do to assist in helping you with your PPSR due diligence reviews. So thank you for your support of ESS Biztools and ESS BizGrants. If you have any questions that you think about in the coming days, weeks or months on how you might undertake a personal property securities register review, please contact us. Have a great day. Goodbye.